My boyfriend's ex showed up at my job with a toddler saying he needs to meet his half-sister. Turns out he'd been paying her rent for 3 years while telling me he was helping his cousin. When I packed his stuff, I found a second phone with a group chat called The Rotation with 4 other women. He reported me to the police for stealing his property. A woman walked into my work yesterday holding a toddler and asked the receptionist which office belonged to my boyfriend's girlfriend. I'm that girlfriend. I've been with him for 2 years, living together for 8 months. He works in tech, travels sometimes for conferences, has always been responsible with money. Or so I thought. The receptionist called me down because the woman wouldn't leave. When I got to the lobby, this blonde woman in her mid-20s was standing there with a little girl, maybe 3 years old, who had his eyes. Same dark brown, same shape. The woman looked at me and said, "You must be the current one. I'm here because he needs to meet his half-sister." I just stared at her. She kept talking like we were having a normal conversation. Told me they dated for 6 months 3 years ago, she got pregnant, he promised to support them. Said he's been paying her rent every month since the baby was born. $1,500. Direct deposit. I felt sick. He told me his cousin was going through a rough divorce and he was helping with expenses. I never questioned it because he showed me Venmo receipts a few times with a woman's name I didn't recognize. Said it was the cousin's wife who he was sending money to directly because his cousin's accounts were frozen. The woman pulled out her phone and showed me bank statements. 3 years of deposits from an account I recognized. Our savings account. The one we were supposed to be building for a down payment on a house. I asked her why she was telling me this now. She said he stopped paying 2 months ago and won't return her calls. She tracked down where he worked through LinkedIn, found out about me through his Facebook, and decided I deserved to know what kind of man I was living with. The toddler started crying and reaching for the windows. The woman picked her up and said, "I'm not here to cause problems. I just need him to step up." Then she left her number with the receptionist and walked out. I went back to my office and threw up in the bathroom. Called him immediately. He answered all cheerful, asking if I wanted him to grab dinner on the way home. I asked him point blank about the woman and the child. Long silence. Then he said, "Baby, let me explain when I get home. This isn't what you think." I told him not to bother coming home. I was packing his stuff and he could pick it up from the front porch. He started yelling that I was overreacting, that the woman was crazy and the kid probably wasn't even his, that he'd been trying to cut her off because she was obsessed with him. Hung up on him. Left work early. Went home and started throwing his clothes into garbage bags. That's when I found the second phone in his nightstand drawer under some old charging cables. It was unlocked. The first thing I saw was a group chat called The Rotation. 4 women. Different profile pictures, all attractive. The messages were from him coordinating meetups. Telling one he'd be in Austin next week for work. Asking another if Thursday still worked for her place. Sending another one money through an app with a kissy face emoji. I scrolled back months. This wasn't new. This was organized. He had a system. I took pictures of everything with my phone. Then I finished packing his stuff, all of it, including the second phone. Put it all in the garage. He showed up an hour later banging on the door. I opened it but kept the chain lock on. He was crying, actually crying, begging me to let him explain. Said the woman from my work was lying, that he'd never cheat on me, that someone must have hacked his accounts. I asked him about the group chat. His face went white. He realized I found the phone. He switched tactics immediately. Started saying I had no right to go through his private property, that I was violating his privacy, that the phone was for work and I didn't understand the context. I told him his stuff was in the garage and he needed to leave. He tried to push the door open. I slammed it and locked it. He stood outside yelling for 20 minutes before he finally left. 2 days later, a police officer showed up at my door. My boyfriend, my ex I guess, had filed a report claiming I stole his property. Specifically an expensive work phone and some electronics. The officer asked if I had any of his belongings. I explained the situation and showed the officer the photos I'd taken of the group chat. Said his stuff was still in my garage, he just hadn't come to get it. The officer looked uncomfortable and said this was a civil matter, not a criminal one, and that I should probably have his things ready for pickup with a witness present. The ex came back with his brother the next day. I had my coworker there with me. He loaded everything into his truck without saying a word to me, just glared the whole time. His brother apologized to me quietly while loading boxes and said he had no idea what his brother had been doing. That was 4 days ago. Yesterday I got a message from one of the women in the group chat. She'd seen my number in his recent calls history when she looked at his phone and decided to reach out. Wanted to know if I was the one who exposed everything because the group chat had been deleted and he'd blocked all of them. I told her what happened. She said she had no idea there were other women or that he had a whole girlfriend. Thought they were casually exclusive. 2 of the other women from the chat have also contacted me now. None of them knew about each other or about me. The woman with the toddler texted me too. Said he finally called her back and told her to get a paternity test if she wanted money, that he wasn't going to keep supporting some other man's kid. She's getting a lawyer. My family thinks I should have just kicked him out quietly instead of keeping his stuff, that filing a police report on me was inevitable and I made things harder on myself. My mom said I was asking for trouble by going through his phone even though it was in my house. But he was stealing from our joint savings to pay rent for a secret child while running a rotation of side pieces, and I'm supposed to have just smiled and packed his bags nicely? Now I'm second guessing whether I handled this the right way. Am I a butthole? The paternity test came back positive. The woman with the toddler sent me a screenshot 3 days ago. 99.9% probability. She also sent me the email from her lawyer demanding he establish a formal child support agreement through the court since he stopped paying voluntarily. Apparently in our state he can't just decide to stop supporting a kid he's been financially responsible for. The lawyer called it establishing paternity and a pattern of support. He's going to owe her way more than $1,500 a month once a judge gets involved. I wouldn't have known any of this except she keeps texting me. Not in a crazy way, more like we're somehow in this together now, which I guess we are. She told me his family reached out to her after his brother mentioned what happened. His mom actually apologized to her and said she had no idea he had a daughter. They want to meet the little girl. He's apparently losing his mind over that. His brother told me, "We've been talking occasionally. He seems genuinely horrified by what his brother did. He said their mom threatened to cut him out of her will if he doesn't step up and be a father. Their dad died 2 years ago and left everything to the mom, and she's got money. Real money. The kind that makes someone pay attention when threatened." But that's not even the worst part of this week. 2 of the women from the group chat, the rotation or whatever he called it, showed up at his apartment. Together. They figured out where he lived through some Instagram detective work and decided to confront him at the same time. One of them recorded the whole thing and sent it to me. I shouldn't have watched it, but I did. He opened the door and you could see his face just drop. Both women started talking at once, asking him how many others there were, if anything he ever said was true, why he would do this to people. He kept trying to close the door, but one of them had her foot in the doorway. Then his current girlfriend appeared in the background. I didn't even know he had a new girlfriend already. It's been 2 weeks since I kicked him out. The girl looked so confused. She was younger, maybe 23 or 24. She asked what was going on and one of the rotation women just said, "Get out while you can, honey. Check his phone." Then they left. I don't know what happened after that, but I'm guessing she found something because he called me at 2 in the morning last night absolutely screaming. Said this was all my fault, that I destroyed his life by keeping his phone and showing people his private messages, that I had no right to humiliate him like this. I hung up and blocked his number. Then I unblocked it 5 minutes later because my lawyer told me to keep records of everything. Yeah, I got a lawyer. Not because I think he'll actually sue me, but because the woman with his daughter said her lawyer mentioned I might be able to file something about the money he took from our joint savings. Apparently if we were living together and he was using shared funds to support a secret second life, I might have a case for some kind of fraud or financial abuse. I don't know if I'll do anything with that, but I wanted to know my options. My lawyer said to document everything and not engage with him directly anymore. The hardest part is my job. People know. The receptionist told someone who told someone else, and now the whole office has heard some version of what happened. Most people have been sympathetic, but it's still humiliating walking past the lobby where she stood holding his child. My boss called me in yesterday and asked if I needed time off. She was nice about it, but I could tell she was uncomfortable. I said no because honestly, what would I even do at home, sit around thinking about this more? His stuff is finally gone from my place, but everything still feels contaminated. I found one of his charging cables behind the couch 2 days ago and I threw it in the dumpster outside like it was radioactive. I keep finding little things. A deodorant in a bathroom cabinet. His spare sunglasses in my car. Every time I find something, it's like getting kicked in the stomach all over again. The woman from the rotation who recorded the confrontation asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. Said she thought it might help to talk to someone who understands what he's capable of. I haven't responded yet because I don't know if that's healthy or just us bonding over shared trauma in a weird way. My mom is still on me about the phone thing. She called yesterday and said I should have just left it alone, that going through someone's private property is a violation even if they're living in your house. I told her he was stealing from me and lying about having a child, and she said that doesn't make 2 wrongs a right. We're not talking now. My best friend thinks I should post the screenshots publicly. Tag him in them on social media so everyone knows what kind of person he is. I won't do that, it feels too far, but I'd be lying if I said the thought hasn't crossed my mind when I can't sleep at night. The brother told me he's been crashing on a friend's couch because he can't afford his own place now. Turns out he was barely making rent before because he was sending money to the woman and paying for hotels and dinners with the others. His credit cards are maxed out. Part of me feels bad for half a second and then I remember the group chat name and the feeling disappears. I'm supposed to go to a wedding next month, a college friend. He was going to be my +1. Now I have to either go alone or skip it entirely because the thought of explaining this story one more time makes me want to scream. Everyone keeps asking if I'm okay and I keep saying yes because what else do you say, but I'm not okay. I'm angry and I'm hurt and I'm embarrassed that I didn't see this. That I believed the cousin story. That I never questioned why he traveled so much for work or why he was so protective of his phone. The woman with the toddler sent me a picture yesterday. Just a random photo of the little girl playing with blocks. She didn't say anything, just sent it. I think she wanted me to see what he was walking away from. Or maybe she wanted me to know this child is real, not some abstract concept or mistake. I looked at that photo for a long time. She has his nose too. Same slightly crooked bridge he always said he got from falling off a bike when he was 7. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with any of this information. Move on? How do you move on when pieces of the explosion keep landing in your lap? His brother said he's telling people I'm crazy. That I fabricated evidence and kept his property hostage. That the paternity test is probably fake. Apparently he's spinning this whole story where he's the victim of a vindictive ex. I want to care, but I'm so tired. Am I supposed to keep defending myself or just let him tell whatever story makes him feel better about losing everything? His mom showed up at my apartment yesterday. I wasn't expecting her. I was eating cereal in my pajamas at noon on a Saturday because I called in sick to work on Friday and just never recovered. The doorbell rang and I almost didn't answer, but something made me look through the peephole. She was standing there in a cream-colored coat holding a Starbucks cup, and I knew immediately this wasn't going to be a quick conversation. I opened the door and she asked if she could come in. Her voice was quiet, careful. I let her in because honestly I was too surprised to say no. She sat on my couch, the same couch she used to sit on, and she started crying before she even said anything. Just put her face in her hands and sobbed. I stood there holding my cereal bowl not knowing what to do. When she finally looked up she said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't raise him to be this person." I sat down in the chair across from her and waited. She told me she'd met her granddaughter 2 days ago. The woman with the toddler, she brought her by their house. His mom said the little girl looks exactly like he did at that age and she couldn't believe he'd been hiding this child for 3 years. She kept saying 3 years like she was trying to make it feel real. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. She'd gone through his old room at their house, the one he'd moved back into after I kicked him out, and she found another phone. A third one. This one had messages with 2 more women I'd never heard about and receipts for an apartment in another city 2 hours away. He'd been renting a second apartment. For a year and a half. She showed me pictures she'd taken of the messages. I don't know why she thought I needed to see them, but she was shaking so hard holding her phone that I think she just needed someone else to confirm what she was reading was real. One of the women thought they were engaged. He'd apparently proposed to her 6 months ago with a ring and everything. She had pictures of it on her Instagram, a whole post about saying yes to forever with someone whose face was conveniently cropped out of every photo. I asked his mom why she was telling me this and she said, "Because you deserve to know you weren't crazy. And because I need you to understand that I had no idea." She kept apologizing like his actions were somehow her fault. I didn't know what to say, so I just let her talk. She told me she'd confronted him that morning. Drove to where he was staying and made him sit down and go through everything with her. Every woman, every lie, every dollar he'd spent. She said he tried to minimize it at first, said the engaged woman was delusional and had made that up, that the second apartment was for work purposes. But she'd called the landlord herself and confirmed he'd been living there on weekends. The landlord remembered him because he always paid cash and brought different women around. His mom said she told him she was cutting him off completely. No more money, no more help, nothing until he got his life together and started making things right with everyone he'd hurt. Especially his daughter. He apparently laughed at her. Told her she had no leverage because he didn't need her money anyway, that he was doing fine on his own. She said that's when she told him about changing her will. Their dad left everything in a trust that she controls until she dies. The house, the investments, everything. She had her lawyer draw up new paperwork that morning removing him entirely. His brother gets it all now. That's when he stopped laughing. She said he started begging, saying she couldn't do this to him, that he'd made mistakes but he was still her son. She told him he was still her son but he wasn't going to profit from treating women like interchangeable toys and abandoning his own child. I didn't know what to say to any of this. Part of me felt vindicated but mostly I just felt tired. She asked if I was okay and I almost laughed because what a stupid question. But I could tell she really wanted to know, so I told her the truth. That I don't sleep well anymore. That I keep finding his things around my apartment and every time it feels like reopening a wound. That work is awkward and my mom isn't speaking to me and I can't stop thinking about how stupid I was. She reached over and grabbed my hand. Hers was freezing even though my apartment was warm. She said, "You weren't stupid. He's a master at this. He had all of us fooled." I pulled my hand back. I didn't want comfort from his mother. I wanted to go back to 3 months ago when I thought my biggest problem was deciding what color to paint the bedroom. She left after about an hour. Hugged me at the door even though I didn't really hug her back. Said if I ever needed anything to call her, that she meant it. The woman who thought she was engaged contacted me last night. Someone must have told her about me. She sent me a long message saying she'd seen the ring on a credit card statement from a jewelry store and confronted him. He'd apparently told her the charge was fraudulent and he was disputing it. She'd believed him until his mom called her yesterday and told her everything. Now she's left him too. She said in her message that she'd quit her job and moved to be closer to him. Given up an apartment she loved. Turned down a promotion. All because he said they were building a life together. I wrote back and said I was sorry. I don't know what else you say to someone whose entire future just evaporated. She asked if I wanted to meet up. Said there's apparently a whole group of us now and maybe we should all get together and compare notes. Figure out the full scope of what he's done. I don't know if I want that. If I want to sit in a room with 5 or 6 other women and piece together a timeline of lies. But I also kind of do want it because maybe then this would feel less like something that happened specifically to me and more like a pattern I got caught in. The brother texted me this morning. Said his mom told him everything and he's on my side completely. Said his brother has been cut off from the whole family except him, and he's only still talking to him to try to get him to step up for his daughter. I haven't responded yet. My best friend came over last night with wine and Chinese food. She read all the messages from the other women and just kept saying what the actual hell over and over. Then she asked if I was going to post about this publicly. I told her no. That as much as I want everyone to know what he is, I also just want to be done thinking about him every single day. She said that's fair but that someone should warn people. That he's going to do this again to someone else if nobody stops him. I know she's right but I'm so tired of this being my problem to solve. The woman with his daughter sent me another picture yesterday. The little girl was wearing a new dress. The caption said, "Grandma took us shopping." At least one good thing is coming from this nightmare. That little girl is getting to know her family even if her father is a piece of garbage. I'm supposed to meet with my lawyer again on Tuesday to talk about the money he took from savings. She thinks I have a case but it's going to be messy and expensive and I don't know if I have the energy for it. Everyone keeps telling me to focus on moving forward but nobody tells you how to do that when pieces of your old life keep showing up demanding attention. Is it wrong that part of me hopes he loses everything? His family, his money, his reputation, all of it? Does that make me petty or does that just make me human? I met with 4 of the other women yesterday. The one who thought she was engaged organized it. She rented a private room at a coffee shop and sent everyone the address. I almost didn't go but my best friend convinced me that I needed to see this through, that sitting alone in my apartment wasn't helping anymore. When I walked in they were already sitting around a table covered in printed documents. Bank statements, text message screenshots, receipts. It looked like a murder investigation board without the string connecting everything. The engaged woman stood up first. She's tall, probably 5'9", with dark hair cut short. She shook my hand like we were at a business meeting and said, "Thank you for coming. I know this is strange." Strange didn't even begin to cover it. The woman with his daughter was there too, the toddler with a babysitter for the afternoon. 2 others I'd only talked to through text. One of them worked as a nurse and had been seeing him for 8 months. The other was a teacher who thought they were exclusive for almost a year. We went around the table and shared our stories. Not the whole thing, just the relevant parts. How we met him, what he told us, when we figured out something was wrong. The teacher started crying halfway through her story and the nurse reached over and held her hand without saying anything. When it was my turn I kept it short. Told them about the woman showing up at my work, finding the second phone, kicking him out. They all nodded like they understood, because they did understand in a way nobody else could. Then the engaged woman pulled out a binder. An actual 3-ring binder with dividers and labeled sections. She'd spent the last week building a timeline of everything. She tracked his travel for work using LinkedIn posts and figured out he was lying about half his trips. The nurse had dates he said he was at a conference in another city, the teacher had those same dates marked as when he was supposedly visiting his sick aunt. I had them listed as cousin support trips. None of it was real. He was just rotating between us on a schedule. The engaged woman said she'd gone back through 2 years of credit card statements after his mom gave her access to some old documents. She found charges for 5 different apartments in 4 different cities. Storage units. P.O. boxes. A second car registration. He'd built an entire infrastructure to maintain separate lives. She flipped to another section and showed us all hotel charges on nights he told each of us he was somewhere else. The nurse said quietly, "There's someone we haven't found yet." Everyone went silent. The engaged woman nodded. She'd counted hotel rooms and nights and done the math. The numbers didn't add up even with all of us accounted for. There were gaps. Nights where he wasn't with any of us and wasn't at the apartments we knew about. I felt sick. We'd found 5 women and apparently that still wasn't everyone. The woman with his daughter said her lawyer had filed for formal child support 3 days ago. She showed us the paperwork. The filing included a request for back payment for 3 years at the state-mandated rate, which is apparently a lot more than what he'd been voluntarily paying her. Her lawyer estimated he'd owe her close to $60,000 in back support plus ongoing monthly payments. The engaged woman asked if anyone else was considering legal action. The nurse said she'd paid for a vacation they took together last year, almost $4,000, because he said his accounts were temporarily frozen. He promised to pay her back and never did. She's talking to a lawyer about getting that money back. I mentioned my situation with the joint savings account. $12,000 he'd taken over 8 months to pay the other woman's rent and fund his double life. The teacher just shook her head and said she'd never given him money, but she'd co-signed a loan for him 6 months ago. For a car he said he needed for work. She'd been making half the payments because he kept saying he was short. The engaged woman wrote everything down. She said we should all file police reports for fraud. That even if nothing comes of it criminally, it creates a paper trail that might help in civil cases. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. She'd hired a private investigator. The pie had been following him for 3 days and already found another woman. Someone new he'd apparently started seeing 2 weeks ago. A bartender he met at some place downtown. The pie had photos of them together, going into her apartment, leaving the next morning. He'd lost everything and he was already running the same game on someone else. The nurse asked if we should warn her. The engaged woman said her lawyer advised against direct contact, that it could complicate things legally, but that there might be other ways to make sure she knows what she's getting into. We talked for almost 3 hours. By the end of it we had a plan. Everyone's filing police reports this week. The engaged woman is coordinating with her lawyer to see if we can file something together as a group. The woman with his daughter is pushing for the maximum child support the court will grant. And we're going to find whoever else is out there. The pie is still following him and documenting everything. When we were getting ready to leave, the teacher asked if anyone had heard from him recently. The nurse said he texted her 2 days ago asking if they could talk, that he missed her and wanted to explain everything. She'd blocked him immediately. The engaged woman said he'd shown up at her new apartment last week. She'd moved after everything came out. He somehow found her address and knocked on her door at 11 at night. She called the police and they made him leave but didn't arrest him because technically he hadn't done anything illegal yet. She said yet like she was expecting it to escalate. I drove home in complete silence. Couldn't even turn on music. Just kept thinking about that binder and all those documents and how many hours she must have spent piecing together a map of his lies. My phone rang around 9 last night. Unknown number. I answered without thinking and it was him. He said, "I know what you're doing. You need to stop." I asked him how he got this number since I'd blocked him. He ignored the question and said I was poisoning people against him, that I was organizing some kind of revenge campaign, that if I didn't back off he'd have no choice but to protect himself legally. I told him I wasn't doing anything except talking to other people he'd lied to. He started yelling that we were harassing him, that he'd already talked to a lawyer about filing a restraining order against all of us. I hung up and immediately called the engaged woman. She said he'd called her too with the same threats. So had the nurse. He's scared. That's what she said. He knows we're comparing notes and building cases and he's panicking. She told me to document the call and save the number. Add it to everything else. I barely slept last night. Kept thinking about the bartender who has no idea what she's walked into. About the other women we haven't found yet. About how many more there might be in other cities or other states. My lawyer called this morning. She said if he's threatening legal action we need to be extremely careful about what we say and do. No social media posts, no direct contact with him, everything goes through lawyers from now on. But she also said what we're doing, sharing information and filing legitimate legal claims, that's all protected. He can threaten all he wants but we're not doing anything wrong. The woman with his daughter texted an hour ago. His mom called her and said he'd showed up at the house yesterday demanding money. When she refused he apparently trashed his old bedroom. Threw things, punched a hole in the wall. His brother had to physically remove him from the house. His mom is filing for a restraining order today. I don't know what happens next but I know it's going to get worse before it gets better. The court hearing for child support was 3 weeks ago. I wasn't required to be there but the woman with his daughter asked if I'd come for moral support. I took the day off work and sat in the back of the courtroom while lawyers argued over monthly payment amounts and back support calculations. He showed up in a suit that looked too big for him. He's lost weight. I noticed that immediately. His face looked hollow and he kept fidgeting with his tie while his lawyer talked. The judge wasn't sympathetic. She went through the evidence of 3 years of voluntary payments establishing paternity and financial responsibility. She listened to his lawyer argue that he couldn't afford the amount being requested, that he was currently unemployed and living with a friend. Then she asked him directly if he'd been paying rent for a second apartment for the past year and a half while claiming he couldn't support his daughter. His lawyer looked confused. He clearly hadn't known about that. The judge ordered him to pay the full state-mandated amount plus $20,000 in back support due immediately with the rest on a payment plan. When he tried to argue she cut him off and said if he could afford multiple residences and hotel rooms for extramarital affairs, he could afford to support his child. I watched him walk out of that courtroom and he looked like someone had physically beaten him. His mom was there too. She didn't speak to him. Just watched him leave and then came over to where the woman with his daughter was standing. She hugged her and the little girl and said she'd help however she could. 2 weeks after that the police called me. He'd been arrested for violating the restraining order his mom had filed. He'd shown up at her house again demanding access to his old belongings and money he claimed she owed him. When she refused to open the door he tried to break a window. A neighbor called it in and he was arrested in the driveway. His brother texted me the booking photo. I don't know why he thought I needed to see it, but I looked anyway. The person in that photo didn't look like the man I'd lived with. He looked feral and desperate and so angry. The engaged woman's lawsuit went through. The judge ruled that his use of fraud to obtain money from her constituted theft by deception. She was awarded the full amount she'd requested plus legal fees. She sent a message to our group chat, just a simple "it's done" with a screenshot of the judgment. The nurse got her vacation money back through small claims court. The teacher is still dealing with the car loan situation, but her lawyer thinks she'll be able to get out of it since she can prove he misrepresented the purpose. My lawyer filed a civil suit for the money taken from our joint savings. His lawyer tried to argue it was a shared expense for a shared life, but the judge wasn't buying it. $12,000 plus interest, due within 90 days. I'll probably never see most of it, but having the judgment feels like something. The private investigator found 2 more women. One in a city 4 hours away who'd been seeing him for 6 months. Another who lived across the state line who thought they were in an exclusive long-distance relationship. The bartender broke up with him after the engaged woman anonymously sent her a folder of documents. I don't know the details, but the engaged woman said she made sure the information came from a source that couldn't be traced back to any of us directly. His job fired him. Apparently word got around about the arrests and the lawsuits, and the company decided he was a liability. His brother told me he's working retail now, some overnight stocking position at a grocery store, trying to make enough to pay his court-ordered obligations. I ran into him 6 days ago. I was getting coffee before work, same place I always go, and he was there. Just standing by the cream and sugar station staring at nothing. He saw me and his whole face changed. Not angry, just broken. He opened his mouth like he was going to say something, and I turned around and walked out. Left my coffee on the counter and just left. My hands shook the whole drive to work. That night I finally blocked his brother's number. I kept it open because the updates felt important somehow, like I needed to know how the story ended. But seeing him in person made me realize I don't need to know anymore. Whatever happens to him next isn't my problem. The woman with his daughter sends me pictures sometimes. The little girl just turned 4. She's in preschool now and apparently talks about her grandmother all the time. His mom has her every weekend and has set up a college fund. He has supervised visitation rights, but from what I understand he's only used them twice. Child Services monitors the visits and apparently he just sits there not knowing what to say to her. She calls him by his first name, not Dad. The engaged woman moved to another state. Fresh start, new job, new apartment. She said she needed to be somewhere that didn't have memories attached to every corner. I understand that completely. I repainted my bedroom last month. The color I'd been planning to do before everything fell apart. It's a soft gray blue and it makes the room feel like it belongs to someone else. Someone who doesn't have a binder full of bank statements and police reports in her closet. Work is better. The receptionist who saw everything happen quit for unrelated reasons, and the new person doesn't know the story. Sometimes I walk through the lobby and don't even think about what happened there, and that feels like progress. My mom and I are talking again. She apologized for not supporting me the way I needed. Said she was scared of me getting hurt worse and defaulted to telling me what she thought was the safe option. We're working on it. I went on a date last week. Just coffee, nothing serious. A friend from college set it up. The guy was nice and we talked about movies and work and normal things. When he asked if I wanted to do it again, I said yes. I don't know if I'm ready for anything serious, but it felt good to sit across from someone and not be waiting for the other shoe to drop. The teacher from our group sends memes sometimes. Stupid stuff about terrible exes and surviving chaos. It's her way of checking in without making it heavy. I appreciate that. Last week I finally threw away the box of his stuff I'd kept. Random things I'd found after he'd taken everything, things too worthless to matter but too connected to throw out. A phone charger. Some old receipts. A hat he'd left in my car. I put it all in a trash bag and dropped it in the dumpster, and I didn't feel anything. That's how I knew I was actually moving forward. Someone asked me at work the other day if I was seeing anyone. Just casual conversation. I said I'd recently gotten out of something complicated and wasn't looking for anything serious right now. She nodded and changed the subject, and that was it. I didn't have to explain. Didn't have to tell the whole story. It was just a fact about my past, not the defining feature of my present. His daughter will grow up knowing she has a grandmother who loves her and a mother who fought for her. She'll probably have questions someday about why her father isn't around much. I hope someone tells her the truth in a way she can understand. I hope she knows that the women he hurt tried to protect each other in the end. That we built something good out of all that destruction. The engaged woman said something in one of our last group conversations that stuck with me. She said this wasn't about him anymore. It was about us deciding what we were worth and refusing to accept less than that. I think about that a lot. I'm worth more than being lied to. More than being one name in a rotation. More than finding out I was sharing a life with someone who didn't actually exist. It took losing everything I thought I had to figure that out. I don't regret kicking him out. I don't regret keeping the phone or meeting with the other women or filing the lawsuit. I don't regret any of it. What I regret is not seeing it sooner. Not asking harder questions. Not trusting my instincts when something felt off. But I can't change that now. All I can do is remember it and do better next time. The little girl in the pictures looks happy. That's something good that came from all this nightmare. She has family now who actually shows up for her. And I have my apartment back. My life back. Myself back. That's enough.